Oakland, dozens of people have to find a new place to stay tonight. Their homeless camp was torn down. What's left is a ton of trash.
This was unjust, unfair, inhumane.
Can you believe it in Oakland, California in 2025? Poverty is also gradually becoming a crime. No court order, no court. Just for pitching a tent on the sidewalk, sleeping in your car, or trying to stay near the city center, you could be chased away like a criminal. Oakland, once a thriving industrial hub, has now become a place where thousands of homeless people are treated as a problem to be dealt with. Encampments are torn down, personal belongings left behind, and the system turned away. As if those poor people had never existed. Officials claim it's for public health and safety, but the real cost of that solution is human dignity. In today's video, we'll delve into the dark side of Oakland, where poverty has become more than just a social issue. It's a nightmare engulfing people with nowhere else to go. Oakland, a city where the American dream once flourished brightly, is now slowly sinking into the darkness of poverty and despair. The image of Oakland today is no longer of bustling neighborhoods where people build careers and create new lives, but of streets filled with tents, trash, and the dazed eyes of people wandering aimlessly through the city. It's a stark contrast between a period of prosperity and a painful reality that no one can ignore. More than 5,000 people are homeless in Oakland, a number that has nearly doubled in the past 5 years. That number isn't just cold statistics, it represents broken lives. People who once had stable jobs, families, and hopes. They are veterans in worn uniforms, single mothers pushing strollers across trash-strewn sidewalks, and elderly people living on social security. Each of their stories carries pain and regret, not only for themselves, but also for the values this city once represented. But the problem in Oakland isn't due to natural disasters, war, or a global pandemic. It gradually infiltrated every corner of the city in a terrifying silence. It started with house prices skyrocketing, the cost of living escalating, but wages remaining stagnant. Welfare programs, once a lifeline for the poor and elderly, are gradually being cut. And then, people who could have lived decent lives gradually slipped away from society, silently but irrevocably. Oakland gradually crumbled in the very beauty of that oblivion. The American dream doesn't disappear overnight. It slowly crumbled, piece by piece, from people with stable jobs to becoming elements of a problem that society wants to eliminate. The nightmare of homelessness in Oakland is not a distant story. It's happening every day, right in the very neighborhoods where we once believed that anything was possible if we just tried. If we don't act now. How many more dreams will rot in the darkness? And when will we truly realize the severity of this crisis? I'm sure all of us have grown up with the Tom and Jerry cartoon, the hilarious chases between the cat and mouse that seem to never end. But if you come to Oakland today, you'll see a live-action version of that very film, only this time. The homeless are the hunted characters, and the city is the brutal playground where they are never allowed to stay long. Because in the eyes of the authorities, the homeless are not just individuals without homes, but seem to be becoming a problem that needs to be cleared up. Instead of helping them have a place to return to, the city chose to make them lose their homes, time and time again. And just recently, after months of delays due to winter storms and legal battles, the city of Oakland finally began clearing the Wood Street homeless encampment, one of the largest and oldest. This decision was made to prepare the land for the construction project of 170 affordable housing units. It sounds reasonable, but for those who have been connected to this place for many years, this is not just a release, it's the erasure of what remains of the concept of home for those who live here. Being asked to move is nothing new. That's something they've experienced many times over the years. They are not just temporarily homeless people, but individuals who have lived their entire lives within a system that has abandoned them. People who once had normal lives and worked hard to build a family are now being asked to leave, unsure of what to do next.
They can't get rid of us. We're dug in like ticks. We're part of the spine of the tree of Oakland, and we're very deeply invested in our neighborhood.
And the reaction didn't stop with the evicted homeless. Homeless residents and activists strongly protested, arguing that the city did not provide long-term and suitable housing for those living in the encampment. Although city officials claim there is enough space in the new shelters, including 100 community cabins funded by an $8.3 million state grant and a new safe RV park on 66th Avenue for about 100 RVs, many people refuse to move, arguing that the shelters are like miniature prisons. They described their new accommodation as lacking electricity, water, and basic human rights.
Those are what they call glorified prisons. They're inadequate to meet the needs, the basic human needs, the basic human rights of a person.
About 70 people are still living at the Wood Street encampment, despite efforts by the authorities to clear it. These people are not just homeless individuals, but human beings who have become victims of a system that cannot provide them with safe and sustainable solutions. The makeshift houses, tarpaulin tents, or RVs all seem like temporary stops on a long, uncertain journey, rather than true shelters. The real issue is, while the government can reach out to and persuade each homeless person, do they truly understand the needs of those living in this situation when temporary shelters are supposed to be a temporary solution but fail to meet basic living requirements and human rights? Is the government truly addressing the problem or simply pushing it further away? Some residents said they would move to other camps, turning the situation into a game of cat and mouse between the authorities and the homeless. Each time they are asked to move, they find a way to return to the life they have built from old cars and tents, because this is the only place where they feel a little free, a little ownership, however fragile. Are we addressing the root causes of homelessness, or are we just trying to cover it up, pushing these people further away from society without providing any sustainable solutions? As the government continues to provide temporary solutions, will society truly understand the basic needs and human rights that these homeless individuals are lacking? In Oakland, once a symbol of opportunity, living cemeteries are now emerging, areas where life is pushed to the margins, where people struggle daily to survive, not just due to a lack of housing, but because of the absence of any real opportunity to change their lives. One of the most notable areas is East 12th Street and High Street, where the lives of the homeless have become an integral part of the city, even though the authorities and community always want to forget them. These aren't just ordinary roads. They're the living graveyards of Oakland, places that have become home to thousands of homeless people who once had normal lives and might have had bright futures. However, for some reason, everything collapsed. This area exists in stark contrast to the city's prosperous districts, alongside luxurious high-rise apartment buildings and shopping malls, where money and prosperity are flourishing, are tents, old RVs, and streets occupied by the homeless, in stark contrast to the clean, bright, and vibrant neighborhoods. East 12th Street and High Street are filled with aimless figures wandering back and forth on the sidewalks, searching for a glimmer of hope in a society that seems to have no place for them. The truth about life here is painful. The tents are not just temporary shelters. They become the only home these people can find in a city that is gradually losing its humanity. The homeless camps here have no electricity, no water, and no basic amenities for living. It was a difficult life, where people were left with only a few fragile hopes. But there was no guarantee that those hopes would be sustained. Some people oppose this cleanup campaign, arguing that it's not a real solution, but just a way for the city to cleanse the homeless ghosts from Oakland's main streets. They believe that solutions like community cabins or safe RV parks are only temporary measures, incapable of providing stable and long-term housing for those who have lived for a long time in areas like East 12th Street and High Street. Being asked to leave is no different than being pushed further away from the very city they once called home. The contrast between this prosperous area and the impoverished one is truly shocking. While luxury stores continue to thrive, catering to the wealthy, right next door, the homeless continue to live in deprivation. The makeshift tents on the sidewalks became their homes, where they had to try to survive amidst a city that had abandoned them. Can Oakland truly address and solve the root causes of homelessness? Or will they just continue to clean up the camps without finding a long-term solution, allowing these impoverished areas to persist like scars in the heart of the city? Oakland was once the pride of California's working class, a vibrant port city where you can support your family on the salary of a mechanic, teacher, or supermarket employee. But today, to rent a one-bedroom apartment, you need over $200 per month. To buy a house, the average is over $850,000. In a city where over a third of the population can't afford to save $400 for an emergency. Those numbers are nothing short of a cold declaration. This place isn't for you. A 2025 survey revealed that nearly 70% of the homeless in Alameda County had previously held stable jobs. Many people were once firefighters, caregivers for the elderly, or mechanics, professions that were once considered the backbone of society. But as the cost of living rose, wages didn't keep pace, and healthcare became increasingly inaccessible. They began to fall out of the loop. Development doesn't stop. The city announced it would build more affordable housing. But that concept is becoming ironic, as newly built homes are cheaper than the market, but not at all cheap for the homeless. When they were ordered to leave the Wood Street encampment, which they had built as a self-sufficient community, the authorities proposed they move to temporary shelters, lacking electricity, water, and even basic human dignity. For them, it's not a place to live, but just a place to wait. The elderly, who once witnessed a prosperous America, now walk the streets with anxious eyes. Oakland used to be warm, a place where anyone could dream and work to reach that dream. But now, that dream seems to have been transferred. Are we building a city for someone to live in, when every square meter of land is converted into market value, and people are only categorized as housed and unhoused? Is development still progress, or just a way for society to learn how to hide its cracks? Perhaps the most frightening thing isn't the increasing number of homeless people, but rather that we've become accustomed to that sight, as if it were never an unusual thing. There's a paradox unfolding across America, a country once considered the land of opportunity and just rewards for dedication. But today, those who spent their lives working, paying taxes, and building the foundation for modern society are the first to be marginalized. In Oakland, the sight of elderly men and women with snow-white hair pushing shopping carts piled high with makeshift belongings, ambling along the sidewalks, is no longer rare. They no longer have a roof over their heads, no longer supported. And there's no one left to lean on but myself. They are former factory workers, teachers, bus drivers, or even veterans, all of whom once had stable lives. But then, life changes too quickly. One serious illness, one job loss, or simply not being able to keep up with the pace of development that's enough for them to slide out of the system. Many of them live in old, dilapidated cars parked on forgotten street corners, or take shelter under rickety awnings. It wasn't that they didn't try. It was that a society turned a new page. No one looked back to wait for them to catch up. The most painful thing isn't the cold or hunger, but the feeling of being left behind, being seen as a burden, being treated like numbers in a statistical table that no one wants to face. They no longer belong to any American dream at all, if that dream ever truly existed for them. The truth is, there is no safety net strong enough to catch their fall. Support programs like Medicaid and Social Security still exist, but are stifled by bureaucracy, cuts, and indifference. Meanwhile, temporary shelters are always overcrowded and lack specialized services for the elderly, those who need special care, both physically and mentally. These elderly people, they don't ask for much. They just want a place peaceful enough to live out their final days with a little dignity. But in a society that is always moving forward without looking back, they can only stand still, be left behind, and wait for a miracle, which will probably never come. If an entire generation of contributors is being abandoned, are we, the remaining ones, living in a grateful society? Or are we just a consumer machine that has forgotten its own roots? After hundreds of homeless people were forced to leave the Wood Street encampment, the city of Oakland launched a program expected to bring positive change, the Tough Shed temporary housing model. In theory, this is a humanitarian solution, lightweight. Prefabricate huts, approximately 8 square meters in size, with lockable doors, roofs, and basic lighting, designed to accommodate a maximum of 2 people. Each area has staff from the Housing Consortium of the East Bay or Operation Dignity on hand to assist residents in accessing medical, mental health, and employment counseling services. This model was implemented with funding from multiple sources, including collaboration with the Home Depot Foundation, the charitable arm of the Home Depot Corporation, one of the main suppliers of materials for Tough Shed. In addition, the non-profit organizations Build Hope LA and Project Homeless Connect were also invited to participate in the program's implementation, consultation, and oversight. The city is committed. Tough Shed is just the beginning, a temporary shelter to help the homeless stabilize their lives, from which they will have the opportunity to transition to long-term housing programs like Section 8 or permanent supportive housing. It sounds full of hope, but stepping inside those small huts, the truth revealed a different story. This room is no different from a prison, shared someone who once lived in a tough shed. We are controlled in terms of time, not allowed to keep personal belongings, and must ask permission if we want to leave the area. Even to go to the bathroom, you have to walk hundreds of meters in the cold night. He compared it to a kind of roofed prison where people are sheltered from the rain, but are not allowed to live like free human beings. And in reality, the path from Tough Shed to stable housing wasn't as easy as the initial promises. Despite support from organizations like People Assisting the Homeless, or career counseling from Goodwill Industries or Catholic Charities of the East Bay, many people still return to the streets after a few months. Why not enough affordable housing? Not enough budget for long-term psychological support? And especially, no continuous monitoring system. The government is struggling with the budget. Charities are overwhelmed. And the homeless, they are caught between promises and a system that is gradually losing its direction. However, amidst those cracks, there are still a few small glimmers of light. Some older women who had lived on the streets for decades felt safer moving into a tough shed. Some people were able to register for Medicaid thanks to temporary addresses. And they found part-time jobs through Indeed Community Impact Program's job platform for the homeless or LinkedIn Reconnect. Additionally, technology applications like Aunt Bertha and 1 Degree are being integrated at tough shed locations, making it easier for residents to look up social services, legal aid, or find housing near them. The problem here isn't that the tough shed model is terrible, but that it's not enough. Small huts cannot replace a real roof, a place where people can build a future, not just exist temporarily. Is the Tough Shed program truly the light at the end of the tunnel? Or is it just a weak yellow light, trying to dispel the darkness to soothe the eyes of outsiders, while those within are still living from day to day? amidst moss-covered buildings, cracked streets, and grey concrete fences separating the slum area from the rest of the city. People are beginning to ask, where is Oakland headed? A city that was once the pride of the American West with a bustling port, vibrant industries, and a diverse and lively community has now become a prime example of failure in urban coordination and social policy. When homelessness is no longer a temporary phenomenon, but has become a structure existing in parallel with the rest of the city. The question is no longer, how do we solve it, but rather, can it be reversed? Temporary camps, like Wood Street or Mosswood, are no longer black spots, but a permanent part of the map. Government intervention, whether under the guise of resettlement or affordable housing, often only shifts the problem from one place to another, rather than addressing it at its root. And when public trust in policies is exhausted, all efforts, no matter how well-intentioned, are like patches on a sinking ship. It's even more terrifying when a young generation grows up amidst that devastation. What image of their homeland will children born in tents and raised amidst the sirens of police cars and the red lights of night districts carry with them? A city without a place to call home, without dreams, and without even opportunities. However, amidst the rubble, there were still tiny glimmers of light. Charities like Lava May, Operation Dignity, and Simply the Basics continue to provide clean water, basic medical care, and hygiene kits to the homeless every day. Local churches organize community meals, or even soft skills classes for people living on the streets. Those actions were small, but they raised a big question. If small people could do it, then why was an entire system powerless? Perhaps the future of Oakland doesn't depend on an urban plan or a multi-billion-dollar bill, and that lies in whether the city dares to look directly at its wounds, admit its mistakes, and listen to the voices of those who are being left behind. Because only when people at the bottom are considered an integral part of the solution, not a problem, will hope have room to take root. But it's also possible that if nothing changes, the future of Oakland won't be just a local matter anymore, but it will be a prophecy for a series of other cities traveling the same path, where poverty is criminalized, where hope is devalued, and where people are forgotten. And by then, who will be next? Oakland, a city once the pride of the Bay Area, is now struggling with the contradictions between development and survival. Skyscrapers rise next to canvas tents, the sounds of car horns mixed with people calling out to each other in the dark night. And those people, still alive, still breathing, but seemingly forgotten by society. From Wood Street to High Street, from tough shed homes to demolished makeshift tents, there are too many people living on the precarious edge of policy and helplessness. They not only lack housing, but also lack faith in a system that once promised not to leave anyone behind. Are the homeless people in Oakland just a consequence of larger policies? Or are they the most honest mirror reflecting an America that is gradually forgetting what makes human beings valuable? If you feel this story is worth listening to, please hit the like button. Share this video with more people, and leave a comment below, because sometimes just a single line of sharing from you can change how someone perceives the homeless. And if you want to continue joining us on our journey to discover forgotten lives, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because soon we will take you to other hidden corners of America where the truth always needs to be spoken. This video was made with the purpose of conveying a social perspective and promoting fair dialogue. All information, images, and characters presented are based on public sources, official reports, or observations from reality, and are not intended to attribute blame, defame, or cause harm to any individual, organization, or government. We do not represent any stakeholders and do not encourage extremist, discriminatory, or prejudiced behavior. All assessments are subjective and reflect a one-sided view of multifaceted reality.